a little secret he shared from Disney and his time there, which I really talk to clients a lot about, and
that's about being bold. So I think I've learned to be bolder this year as well through our own work of helping our clients be bold.
We dribbled some little hints about awards and things, and actually I'm sure people are sat there going, so did you win? Did you win? Did you win? It's just magical.
So without naming any clients for confidentiality, is there any moments that stand out? And I answered the phone and it wasn't Matt's voice. So my heart went into my feet, as it does. And he said, there's been an accident, but Matt's okay. We're just waiting for an ambulance.
And they started to say to us, why don't you guys do this all the time? It's amazing. And we got to a point where we were like, okay, I think the market's telling us something. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Leading Boldly podcast. It's Christmas! Okay, so it's not quite yet, but we are only a week away, and we've got the tinsel up.
Pink and teal, magenta and teal tinsel. Couldn't leave it in the shop.
So, what are we doing for our Christmas special? We wanted to really dive into 2024. It's been a bold year for us, and we would just wanted to unpack it with you guys who have been on this journey with us. Just talk about the highs, the lows, the crises, the celebrations, everything that's really gone into our 2024 and what it's taught us about building powerful missions, lives, and businesses.
Exactly that. So, I'm really excited about this episode because we have had a lot of ups and downs that you may not know about. If you just listen to this podcast and don't see our other stuff, you may not know about a lot of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes of the podcast. And we're here to open all of that up and talk about our guests throughout the year as well.
And what we've learned from them. I mean, we've had some amazing guests, really fortunate in, our first year of episodes to have had some amazing people who have shared some absolutely mind-blowing value with us. So
yeah, these are the things that we want to talk to you about, and we're going to start off actually about going through our guests and what we've learned from each of them across all the episodes. And if you haven't heard that particular episode, you might be inspired to go back and have a listen. But we started off in stellar company with Ezekiel.
Yeah, absolutely. For those of you who haven't listened to it, Ezekiel's an amazing guy from Latin America who started out as a graphic designer and was soon headhunted to lead a lot of the branding efforts, particularly in the digital and tech world, for none other than Disney, for all of the Spanish-speaking world. Amazing. And he had some just great insights to share with us. I think my two takeaways from Ezekiel were tech and art don't have to live in isolation or in opposition of each other. That actually, when you bring the two together, you get a really powerful result. And I absolutely loved that. And a little secret he shared from Disney and his time there, which I really talk to clients a lot about. And that is Disney, a company that big, still sit down together once a quarter and replan their 10-year plan. They've constantly got a 10-year plan and it's evolving all the time to meet shifting challenges and changes, but it keeps them all focused and knowing where they're going.
And that really helped me too. It helps me keep focused with the 10-year plan, because a 10-year plan isn't that you do the 10-year plan today and then in 10 years you go, right, did I do my plan? That's not how a 10-year plan works. And I think that's how many people see the 10-year plan. Is it's the 10-year plan that goes in the drawer, and then in 10 years time they're going to look back and go, right, what did I do, what didn't I do? So I think that was something that has really helped me across this whole year of, okay, 10-year plan can change in a month. And for us, lots has changed as well. I also loved how Ezekiel talked about slowing down for success. And I think we hear a lot of entrepreneurs and people like Stephen Bartlett who you think, well, how can I be as successful as him when I don't have the energy to do 12-hour days or 14-hour days, or live like Stephen seems to live constantly within his business, and it's always feels very fast paced all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we see a lot of in the media, is these fast paced entrepreneurs who are out there all the time. And I loved Ezekiel talking about slowing down for success, and that actually you can be as successful if you just take a breath and slow things down.
If not more so, because as Ezekiel said, and I totally agree with him, there's one thing for sure, and that's real creativity requires space. It requires space and time to think, to evolve, to create. And I think, that's, if you haven't heard the episode or watched it on YouTube, guys, dive in and check out our episode 2 with Ezekiel. It was amazing.
And then episode 3, hotly followed that, was our lovely Michael Gladwell, a friend of ours in our local community. And Michael has set up a business that helps people with finding their mission in life, their purpose. But when they don't get that, so I'm not explaining this very well, actually. So Michael runs a cleaning company. It's a social enterprise, and he goes into big businesses, cleans their business space so that it's really high end, but he employs people on a real living wage. People like such as refugees who come and they can't, and it's not all refugees, but they can't get that for themselves. So Michael gives the opportunities to go and find work where they can feel uplifted, they can feel part of a community, they can feel inspired to do more and be more than they think they can. And we did some work with Michael this year within the company, and talking to those cleaners themselves and the management teams about how it's impacted their lives was just life-changing for us as well, because it makes you realize that actually you can have a really boring, seemingly boring business like cleaning, and for a big, huge company, that can check their box for social enterprise and doing things for the community.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my 2 favorite things about Michael, one was on the episode, one wasn't on the episode, actually. One came out of the work that we did with Michael and his team. So one thing that came out of the episode for sure, and it's definitely worth a listen or watch, is that you can do good in the world by making a profit. And actually, you can do more good in the world if you make more money, because you've got more resources to do good. And I think that is something that a lot of, especially smaller charities and social enterprises, shy away from. They don't like to be seen to be doing well at making money. Whereas Michael's take is it's absolutely essential. It's the fuel by which we make these big changes to culture and people's lives. And I totally agree.
And it's really inspired us with other charities that we work with to say, look, here's a model that means that you can actually get paid a really good wage and do good for society.
Yeah, do amazing good.
Make a difference.
But the thing that came out for me from the work that we did with Michael and his team, that I'm sure he won't mind us sharing, is that when we spoke to his staff and the people that worked for him, yes, he's paying them a very good living wage, unlike many cleaning companies in the industry. But that's not what they talked about.
No, it wasn't.
The real big thing they talked about was him giving them the opportunity to stand on their own 2 feet with pride, knowing that they could look after their family themselves, that they could go out to work and make a difference to someone's workplace by cleaning it. They had real pride and real. That's the big thing that they said about Michael, was that, and what he was doing, his enterprise, was that it gave them confidence and pride to stand on their own 2 feet, which is just, it goes way beyond what a wage can do.
We had such a brilliant time with those people. It was, and they were engaged, they were open, they were vulnerable, and that for us, having that trust from people to be open like that was just amazing.
Yeah.
So following Michael,
Robert Riopao,
a bit of a hero of ours,
the crazy Canadian. What can we say about this guy? Well, let's tell a little story about how we met Robert to start with. So we met Robert because he was the lead trainer at the program we went to, originally devised by Harv T. Eker, which was called Millionaire Mind Intensive. And it was a program all around changing the way you think and feel about money. Mind blowing. It was brilliant. We'll drop a link actually in the show notes for you to go and look at this because it was fantastic. But what was doubly fantastic was at the front of a huge auditorium was this little bundle of absolute mega Canadian energy who led us through some really quite tough exercises and processes to unlock our relationship with money. And
there were lots of tears,
lots of laughter, lots of jumping
lots
up
of
and
dancing,
down.
yeah, and crazy stuff that we and Matt had always said we would never invest in.
Absolutely.
But Robert got us there.
And it certainly changed our lives, that program, and we have become friends.
Yeah, he's a bit of a guiding light for us in many ways, isn't he?
Yeah, so we had to get him on the show to talk about his journey, and because it's pretty incredible. I mean, he went from $150,000 in debt to financially free in no time at all. And from a pizza delivery boy at Domino's to owning several Domino's pizza franchises to being a world leading trainer and millionaire. It's quite inspiring.
And he's just a brilliant, nice guy.
Yeah.
So he's been a massive inspiration for us.
And a crazy Canadian.
So I said that enough? I think one of the things we've learned from the episode is that you can indeed take a huge pig in your camper van with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Along with dogs and other stuff.
But just don't cook bacon for breakfast.
No. No, don't cook bacon for breakfast. So go back and have a listen to that episode. Listen to it again and again, because I think he is a constant inspiration for what we can do in life and what we can achieve and our relationship with money.
The gems in that episode and just the energy that he brings is motivating. It really is.
Yeah. And next up on our lineup of superstars is the lovely ginger-bearded Scotsman that is also a friend of ours.
Yeah.
Campbell McLean. He is the sales geek, and he teaches us all the time what sales can be.
We're not talking douchebag sales here. We are talking positive sales and sales that actually work in modern times. Because there's one thing that's absolutely certain, and that is we hate to be sold to, but we love to buy.
Yeah, some of us more than others.
Yeah, and Campbell talked to us in great depth about how to sell positively and how to do it in a way that actually you're not really selling. You're just giving people what they want.
But also, we've spent a lot of personal time with Campbell and his lovely wife, who, the two of them are a great team. They work together in the same way that we work together. They've got 5 kids, they've got a whole life. And so we love meeting up with him and shooting the breeze and having a chat. And we always learn something from him. I think he learns things from us. And it's a great relationship. It's one of those relationships that you just kind of meet on the off chance in a networking and you build a relationship. And this is the beauty of networking, because we met him through networking. And this is the beauty of good networking. And networking can be scary and uncomfortable. But when you meet people like Campbell and his wife, Audrey, and his son, Austin, we met him as also through the networking landscape. And then you build actual relationships with these people. There's nothing better, really, is it? You gain a tribe.
Absolutely. And then we've got a real interesting one up next, because it came about in not the normal way.
No, it came out from your dad.
It came from my dad. Jenny gets a call one morning. Not me, I hasten to add, Jenny.
That's because I am the favourite.
From my dad. And he said, I was out last night and I went to a talk. And there was this woman there who gave this amazing talk, and you've got to get her on the podcast. Sam Schlimper.
Yeah. So me and Sam had a chat, realized we could chat for England for a long time, and then said, yeah, we need you on the podcast, because what she had to talk about was really mindset changing, I think, in a lot of ways. If you've listened to it, I would love to hear your feedback on how it changed your thoughts. But it was the combination of AI and humans, and how AI can really help human interaction, actually.
And particularly in the workplace.
Yeah.
It was a really different take. You know, there's a lot of scaremongering and worry talk around AI in the workplace, particularly. And she had a really different viewpoint. And I must say, a viewpoint that's backed up by a ton of data that her and her team at Randstad have been compiling and put together through real world evidence. And this isn't like guesswork. She's not just standing up saying, this is how it could be. She's actually seen and got the data and was able to give us a lot of insights in that.
And Sam is traveling globally talking about this stuff. You know, she's a real strong female presence in leadership, and she taught us about female leadership, and it was brilliant just having, again, that connection, and a connection that came about really from a family member who saw somebody who said, you need to speak to that. And again, those buildings of relationships and those threads, because I could have gone, yeah, okay, Rob, that's nice, and not contacted Sam. Or I could have contacted Sam, and this has happened a lot this year. I could have contacted Sam and she could have just not replied. We have messaged huge numbers of women this year in leadership, and we've had very few actual responses. And it shows, because we've got 3 females on out of the 12 podcast episodes. So the fact that Sam was willing to come on and be open and share her experiences was amazing. And I really loved her talking about how this generation coming up behind is a bridge with the older generation, almost because they've got similar life experiences. And I think we always talk about how the younger generation is so different to the older generation. There's such a big divide, but actually she was talking about their similarities and how they can be a bridge for us in humanity. So go back and listen to that in more detail, because that was another, oh yeah, good point.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, if you're worried about AI and its future in the workplace and how to best integrate it, or you're struggling with something else you talked a lot about, which is, for the first time ever, we've got 4 generations in the workplace. Go back and have a listen or a watch to that one, because it really has so many great points and information.
Next, we're on to one of my favorite police people. And I have to say one of, because I've got a few family members that are in the police, but he is up there.
And he's given me one of my claims to fame this year, and that's that I made a 6'8" copper cry live on the podcast. But it was important. It was important. He was sharing an incredible story with us, and one that's so important for people to hear.
Do you know what was most important about that moment for me? And it probably was one of my favorite moments across all the podcast episodes, not because we made him cry, but because Stuart talks a lot about men being vulnerable. He was never vulnerable as in the past. He was very stoic, stiff upper lip, proper British, PC. And what he talks about now is about being vulnerable. And he put himself out there on a podcast, like out there, this massive guy who has dealt with huge life and death situations. And in this particular example, it was a death situation of a young person. And what he showed the world, I really hope, is that there is compassion in the police force. These are human beings that go in and deal with situations and then have to go home and deal with whatever situation they've dealt with.
Situations that are horrific.
And so, like, Stuart, being the big teddy bear, gives the best hugs. Well, next to Matt, of course. Matt gives the best hugs, but he gives really good hugs. And again, somebody that when we had an incident at home with a knife crime incident, actually, with one of my children, I could call him and say, what do I do about this? Like, how can I proceed? And he was there at the end of the phone to talk me through what we could do. And having that sort of person in your network, and he's, you know, these are all people that we've met in the last year. It's just incredible for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
It made a real difference to our life and our business.
Yeah.
And I think the next person on the list of Marion Parish is somebody who I think can make a difference to anybody in business, whether you're going to take on a team or whether you're starting your own business, is the accidental manager.
Yeah.
And we could exchange manager for leader.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it happens to so many people. You're promoted, or you start running your own business, and all of a sudden you're a manager. You're managing people, or even managing yourself. And it's a big jump with very little in the way of training. And she has some amazing information and tools and things to say about managing people the right way. And we're not talking here about, HR tribunals and, problems. We're talking about positive management of people in a way that is really humanistic, actually, and supportive of everyone within the team, not just the manager.
And I know a lot of people who have become, in my friendship circle, who have become accidental managers, and they really hate it. And a lot of the time they hate it because they've not had very good training or support to then progress them. And they get into those positions because they've done really well at their job. And then they're not doing that job anymore. They're doing the next level up job, which involves managing people. And they're sat there going, well, now what? Just because I was good at that job doesn't mean to say I want to manage other people doing the job I used to do. So I loved her perception of it all and her angles that made me really think. And it made me think about our future if we end up taking on a staff, because at the moment a lot of our work is with freelancers, but how we can do that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So she'll be an inspiration for us in the future. Even if it's not for today, it can always be for the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
And speaking of the future,
yeah,
we've then got this amazing guy who is trying to help the future of many men out there, men that are really struggling with mental health. And Neil Smith is looking to be a guiding light in the future of men with his mental health app, Metal.
Yeah, absolutely. Neil is an amazing guy who was until very recently a world-renowned and very, very successful TV producer. You definitely have seen some of his shows. We're talking The Apprentice. We're talking all of the Bear Grylls stuff. We're talking Snowflake Mountain, which I loved. I thought it was hilarious.
Guilty pleasure of mine of that. We wanted to send all our kids on it.
Absolutely. And he got to his 40s and decided it was time to pivot because there was a difference that he wanted to make. And that's that he wanted to change the landscape of men's mental health for the better. And he's doing so through an app called Metal, as Jenny said. And
we downloaded the app after the episode.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I use it.
Using it.
I use it a lot. It's really good. It has sort of daily boosts, little talks from various coaches and inspiring sort of male leaders. It's great.
And even though it's for men, I listen to it alongside you, and it's equally relevant to me. There's nothing that's not relevant to me. It's just that men struggle to access mental health things because they're often marketed and targeted for women, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of the messaging around men's mental health in the mainstream is written by women because women are amazing, empathetic souls who are great at that stuff. But men just need to be talked to in a different way. So that was great. And I would dive into that episode. It's not all about mental health. In fact, there's very little in there about mental health in that episode. But he talks a lot about uh, building a team of the right people around you who can get results. And also, he dives in quite a lot to how he managed to get over £1 million of seed funding to start up this app. And all that's information that sort of business owners really need to know.
And I had a message from someone yesterday saying they'd just listened to the episode and they really loved the thing he said about bringing others along with you. You know, who's your team, who you're going to bring, and elevating everybody around you. So I only had a message about that yesterday from somebody who was a new listener. So that's a great thing about podcasts. You can go back and listen to them at any time and learn something.
Yeah.
Even if it's been released months ago, and the first one was in May. So we've had 2 more guests to talk about before we're going to then dive into our last year of business and the things that we've learned.
I'm just going to stop you there, Jenny, for a second. And I don't know if this is a good thing to say or not, but I've just looked down our list of guests and I wanted to use the word crazy again. We've had some amazing guests and some real crazy guests. Maybe the two go hand in hand. I don't know. Does brilliant.
I think it does.
Yeah. You may have a point there. You may have a really good point. But it does lead me on brilliantly to our next guest, who is crazy as a box of frogs, and we love her. It's Rachel Davies, and she is a positive workshop coach.
Yeah. So she creates joyful workshops. And she is so much fun. Again, we met through, your brand strategy group that you're in, didn't we? And she's...
Actually, we didn't. We met on LinkedIn.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, that was just LinkedIn.
Oh, I thought she was in the strategy group.
Nope.
Well, there you go. I learned something new. So you can make really good connections on LinkedIn, and all these people that moan about LinkedIn, and I've met some really good connections on LinkedIn too.
If you forget selling and what you can get out of it, it's no different to any other form of networking. If you ditch the selling attitude and the what can I get from it, what am I going to get from it, what am I going to get from it, and just go out and make some friends and some connections and some relationships, magic starts to happen.
Yeah, so we're quite keen to go and visit her in Texas.
Absolutely.
Like her and her husband. So we did a double date on my the Drama Dialogues podcast, and that was released a couple of weeks ago. But we basically had a double date with her and her husband as well on the different podcast. And we all got on like a house on fire. So we're quite excited about having a holiday place to go to. We're going to go and build some Lego.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I don't think she'll let us near a Lego, actually.
No, I don't.
You can but hope. She'll get us to make some ducks, I'm sure.
Absolutely. So that's a great episode. If you are sick of drowning in PowerPoint or glazing over at workshops that either you're running yourself or your company that you work for run, go and listen to that episode and hear all about how you can do it in a really positive and engaging way that brings joy to people rather than glaze over PowerPoint death.
I also think just go and listen because she's so much fun to hear.
Absolutely.
Right,
yeah.
And her energy's awesome.
And she's got some great insights on life.
Yeah. And talking about insights on life, our final person that we've had for this year, was a bit of mentor of yours.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Somebody
who's really inspired you.
Yeah.
The amazing Jacob Cass.
Absolutely. When I first started to pivot from the sort of entertainment and event design world that I was in, I started to look online for people who I could learn from, who could give me some more information about this new world that I was looking at through the work I was doing and was exciting me. And one name just came up again and again and again, and that was Jacob Cass. And so I was thrilled years and years later to have him on the podcast, particularly as I had just been a speaker on his first Brand Builder Summit, which was the first of its kind, never happened before, and the biggest branding summit ever produced. He did phenomenal work there.
And you felt really privileged to be part of it was a stellar cast, wasn't it?
Oh, it was a stellar cast of speakers, the best from around the world.
So can I just pause a minute here and just point out that we've had Jacob Cass, who's from Australia. We've had Rachel Davis, who lives in Texas. I don't think they're not from Texas. They moved to Texas. We've had Sam Schlimper. Do you remember where Sam was
from Germany originally?
Yeah, Germany.
And now based in the UK.
We've had Robert Riopal, he's from Canada. He was in Poland doing the
he was in Poland when we recorded, but he's based in Canada.
And we've got Ezekiel, who lives in Spain.
After immigrating from South America. And yeah, a real international cast.
That's pretty impressive.
For the Leading Boldly.
And we've even got a Scotsman, even though he lives in the UK, in England.
Absolutely.
What a cast. That's so cool. So with Jacob, I think I learned a few things separately from the podcast, and we have talked about them in the podcast, is about caring for the people that you get onto your summit. So we received an envelope of thank you stuff, and like his communication with it all was really, really nice. And he said he wants to increase that next time, but I think he did a really good job this time.
Amazing. Yeah, he really put great value in something that we talk a lot about, and that is experience, the experience that the people around you are having. And he put as much effort into the experience of the people working on it and working with him on it as he did with the paying guests.
And the other thing we've learned from Jacob is that sometimes we put all our eggs in a basket in business. So his was in the Google basket and the SEO basket. And sometimes those baskets get big, huge holes, or somebody sets them on fire. Yeah. And his was set on fire. And at that point, we decide whether we just crumble to the what's happened and go, oh, my business is over. A bit like COVID, actually.
Yeah.
Or whether we pivot. And Jacob pivoted brilliantly.
Yeah.
And he's doing a really good job of that. So I think listen to that and listen to the message of when everything burns down around you, pivot. Somebody said to me when they read my autobiography, which will be out really soon, they said, Jenny, you're the queen of the pivot. And Matt has had, COVID brought such big challenges in his industry that he then chose to pivot. He could have gone back to the industry. Lots of people have gone back and they've rebuilt, but Matt chose to pivot. And so, yeah, we're going to talk a bit more about Matt's pivot later on in the episode. But what a list of guests we've had this year.
Oh, amazing, amazing. But I am keen to learn one thing from you, Jenny, and that is not necessarily from our guests, but what's your biggest learning of 2024?
Oh, so, well, I've learned millions and millions of things. I'm definitely learning more about brand strategy. So I think you keep saying to me, oh, you're really getting this. So I've gone from not having any clue about brand strategy to having quite a lot of clue about brand strategy. Another big learning is that we've done some really big things this year that have been quite scary. And the detail that you've put into it, because you're much more detailed than me. And I've kind of gone, oh, but we don't need pink and teal up lights in our launch party that are going to cost thousands and thousands of pounds. You've gone, yes, we do, because that's about being bold. So I think I've learned to be bolder this year as well through our own work of helping our clients be bold. I think I've learned to be a bit bolder too.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about you?
Fortune favors the bold.
It does. What about you? Biggest learning.
Biggest learning. I think my biggest learning of the year is that when we stay inside our little box and we think I, it's tricky for other people to engage with that. And that sounds a bit confusing, but the way that shows up is the message that you put out to people doesn't land properly. The relationships you build with people, if you can build relationships, aren't quite right. There's something off. And I think my biggest learning is that we need in business and in life just way more empathy of stepping into the other person's shoes and trying to see the world from their point of view. And I'm not suggesting that that's all guesswork. I think quite a lot of the time we can just ask them how the world looks from their shoes and how best to show up for them. But I think in life and in business, when we start to put ourselves in the shoes of the people that we want to build relationships from, with, that people that we want to buy from us, people that we want to work with, people that we want to partner with or have investment from, when we step into their shoes and look at the world from their eyes and talk to them in a way that means something to them, not us, I think magic happens when you do that.
That's very good learning for the year. Well done.
Yeah, thanks.
What do you think is the biggest risk we've taken this year?
Well, completely going all in on the launch of a brand new business. I think that's pretty risky. It's paying off brilliantly, but it hasn't been without its risk. And part of that risk was that it was a real pivot for me. And I've spent the year turning down a lot of high-paid work from my previous life, and that has felt scary at times.
The number of times you've called me and gone, "Oh, Jenny, I've been offered this thing. What do I do?" And we've had a conversation, and you said, "It's not in alignment. I don't want to do it, so I'm just going to say no." And I've supported you in that, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it has felt scary for sure.
Yeah. But I think the thing that keeps, and it's worked, like it's working. So that, and I think there's a couple of things there. I think we need to decide where we're going. Yeah. And we need to decide what's going to get us there. And we need to stay aligned to that. This flip-flopping around of like a bit of this, bit of that, it's exhausting. So a real focus on where you're going and the strategy that you're going to use to get there and sticking to it no matter what is really key.
And it's hard because you were very well thought of and respected in your previous industry, and they do message you.
Yeah.
You know, people want you to work for them and with them. And so saying no to that is something that you've been doing for a very long time. It is hard. And I think people can be so tempted to go back because it just feels easier to say yes and go back because the money is there.
Yeah.
And then forget, and then they wonder why their business that they want to do isn't happening.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a real powerful statement, I guess, from Tony Robbins, whose work I really love. He talks a lot about this, and he talks about getting to a position where you've made a decision, and that decision is a must, not a should or a maybe or a want. It's an absolute must. So for me, it was a must to grow our business from launch, and for that to be our real only focus in terms of work. When that became a must, the decision to turn down the other things was slightly easier. He also talks a lot about the human need to burn all your boats. He says that in sort of war chronicles and things, where if you want your army to take over an island, drop them on the island and then burn all the boats because they've got no option to go back. And when people don't have an option to go back, they will normally do what's required to go forward.
Yeah. I've been really proud of you for all of those decisions that you've made.
Yeah.
Because it's not been easy.
Thanks.
So my biggest risk,
yeah,
it's really been financial. Like we've put a lot of personal finance into growing the business and into our personal growth.
Yeah, I would say we've risked as much personal finance in our own growth as anything, and It's something we do with our clients. We tackle the business and the personal stuff in parallel. It's our big difference, and because we see it works, because the two are not separate, they can't be.
Yeah.
So carry
And
on.
another risk I've taken this year is getting my book written, and it will be out very shortly. It's just in the very, very final stages. We're working on the tweaks and the bits and bobs, but
The cover design rolled off the press this morning.
yeah, and it's putting yourself out there, myself out there in full Technicolor is quite scary. I know I do it on podcasts all the time. So the Drama Dialogues is full of my life stories. My articles are full of my life stories. My posts are full of my life stories, but putting it all in one volume in one place that people can sort of pick that up and judge me. And there will be judgment because there are things written in the book that choices I made that weren't great choices, things I did that weren't necessarily accepted by society, things that I talk about that people will go, why the heck has she talked about that in a book? That's all happening in the book. And so there are people that I'm going to definitely walk past in my village who will have read more about me than they needed to know. I always say I would really love to be able to sell the book a 10-mile radius outside my where I live. Everybody outside that 10-mile radius can read it, but that's not how book sales work. So if people next door want to read my book, they can, and they will know probably more about me than they ever need to.
Yeah, absolutely.
It feels kind of risky.
It's a great book, though.
And I think it's why I've procrastinated quite a lot on like these fine details towards the end, because we've had to really push through. Plus we've been very busy, and we've had a few challenges that have come up that have put some spanners in the works.
Yeah, we have. Like successes and business and life is never a straight line, is it? There's ups and downs and troughs and peaks, and sometimes there are some great big chasms.
We've had a few of those this year.
So, what would you say has been your biggest challenge this year, Jenny?
Oh my God, the Clutterham men. I'm sure they're trying to kill me off by killing themselves off. It's like, so I was sat in my house 3.5 hours away from where Matt was, and I got a phone call. It was a Sunday evening about 4 o'clock, and I thought this is really weird because Matt never ever uses his phone while he's driving. Like, he just doesn't. So I thought, oh, is the car broken down? You know, what's happened? And I answered the phone and it wasn't Matt's voice. So my heart went into my feet, as it does. And he said, there's been an accident, but Matt's okay. We're just waiting for an ambulance. I'm like, I'm not sure that sounds okay, but all right. And then I spoke to Matt and he was in a lot of pain and had been in a 6-car pileup on the M25. So I had a lot of decisions to make very quickly in that time, or what could have been very quickly. So it wasn't quick decision. It was in hours terms, but my knee jerk was right, jump in the car and head off. And my parents were with me and they said, look, just have some food. You don't know how long the night's going to be. We don't know what's going to happen. So eat something, because I'm not very good without food. So I ate something. And then I had a few options. So I was working through the options in my mind, and I decided the best option was to go to Matt's house, pack a suitcase, because we were going to Canada in 3 days' time. We had a 10-hour flight in 3 days' time. And Matt was 3.5 hours away. His dad, I knew at that point, was driving to him because he was only an hour from his dad. So I knew his dad was going to be there. And so I went and packed the suitcase. Mine had been packed. I got the passports and all the stuff that we needed. And I arrived at the hospital at 11:30 to see Matt in like a neck block on a stretcher, strapped in. That was not a great moment in either of our lives, I have to say. And it was not a highlight of the year. The upshot was, and we'll talk a bit more detail later, but he was okay-ish, and we managed to make it to Canada. So that was the first Clutterham man error. Not that it was your fault, but challenge in my life. And the second was in the end of September when the other Clusherham man in my life, Matt's dad, didn't arrive home from holiday, and he had escaped because he didn't want a party for his big birthday. We're not going to say which one, but you can guess. And it was his big birthday. He was going away and on his own, because he does that all the time, so that we couldn't throw him a party. And he didn't arrive home. So what ensued was sort of 10 days of chaos-ish. But it was definitely a few hours of super sleuthing. Now, me and Matt really love detectives. So we love Sherlock Holmes, Poirot. We like detective things. We did a lot of detectiving, didn't we?
Yeah, a lot of detectiving very quickly.
So you pick up on the story.
Yeah, so we knew he'd gone to Greece. We knew he was due back. And that's pretty much all we did know. So we had to find him. So we did a lot of phone calls, ringing around, coming up against the GDPR law stopping us finding out information.
We can't tell you whether he's on our flight. We can't tell you whether he made our flight. We can't tell you whether he's in this hospital or not.
You can't talk to him because you can't prove your family. But the upshot was we found out where he was and we basically jumped on a plane and went out. And yeah, luckily he was okay. And more luckily for us, there were a couple of absolute superstar gems in Greece who helped us.
And they really lived and embodied every single brand promise that you can deliver for any business that you run. So it was part of EasyJet Holidays. They were an independent holiday provider for these two islands in Skiathos and Skopelos in Greece. And EasyJet Holidays promised to take you on holiday and look after you and everything. And what they did as a couple was they looked after us for an extended period of time while Matt's dad was recovering from what ultimately was a bleed on the brain. And Cosmina came to all the hospital appointments. She translated Greek. I mean, we know nothing. Greek is a language all to itself.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have stood a chance. And so having that, they literally embodied every single bit of brand promise of looking after a human being to the nth degree. So that was a real highlight for us too. So it was one of the worst times, but it was also a real highlight because we realized that how many amazing human beings, and we came across a lot across the week, didn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And I had the pleasure of grabbing a coffee a couple of weeks after that with both the CEO and the head of operations for EasyJet Holidays, and just talking about the situation and how their company had really shown up and delivered for our family purely because of the relationships that they had intentionally built with outstanding human beings.
Yeah.
And I really, really want to triple underline that point. They intentionally created relationships with standout human beings who could deliver against their brand promise. And they were delighted to hear the story. And, you know.
So what I learned from that whole time was, firstly, that me and your dad can go on holiday together and get on pretty well. We get on very well, and I'm definitely the favorite now. But and we worked really well as a team, but we had to make some sacrifices in that time. So during that time, we realized we weren't going to get home until a certain point. And that certain point was after an award ceremony that we were going to, where we'd been shortlisted to win an award. And we had booked a table of 10, and we'd invited people that have meant a lot to us along our journey. My parents was going to be there. Rob was supposed to be there too. Me and Matt were obviously going to accept the award. So I had people there who'd been supportive. And we had to make a decision about what we were going to do with this table of 10 and the award, and Matt was worried about leaving, but I just said, look, you have to go and do another job on the Friday. Matt was going to Greece to do a different job in a different part of Greece, oddly, that had been booked a year before. So I said, why don't you go home, accept the award, and well, we didn't know whether we'd won or not, but go and host the table.
Yeah.
Let's find some people that can stand in for me and Rob. And well, that's the best situation. Like, that is the best thing that we can do. So Matt hesitantly jetted off on the Wednesday. The award ceremony was on the Thursday. And me and Rob didn't come home until the following Tuesday. So we had almost a whole week together. Just me and your dad chilling out on the beach, hanging out in the apartment, having nice food. we made the best of a pretty crisis-filled situation, didn't
Absolutely.
we?
Which is a key part of what we do, isn't it? Like, it doesn't matter what's going on. You can look at life and business as a whole series of problems, or you can look at them as a whole series of opportunities. And I think for me, if you want to just diagnose problems, then probably go and see a doctor or a mechanic or a shrink. But if you want to deal with opportunities, come and talk to us.
Oh, there we go. That's a good plug for you. But there are, there were lots of things that week. We had to make some real decisions, and there were hard decisions because it meant sacrifice. In whatever direction that we went in would require a sacrifice of some decision, some direction. So we had to choose which was the best.
Absolutely.
Of the sacrifices. So
you've opened up an amazing story gap there, Jenny, because we've dribbled some little hints about awards and things, and actually I'm sure people are sat there going, so did you win? Did you win? Did you win? And that leads us on to a great highlight of the year. Of course we did.
Of course, really?
Yeah,
really, of course. Well, that was funny because I was sat in my hotel room in Greece in my pajamas as they were all black tied up, and Matt went, yeah, we're not going to win this. Like, the competition's really stiff.
We're
sat at the table at the back of the room.
Yeah, the short list that we were up against was pretty intimidating, to say the least. And when I got into the room, I realised that we were on a table right at the back of the room, and I just messaged Jenny and I said, they've put us at the back of the room. That's too long a walk. Like, we definitely haven't won. Like, definitely haven't won this.
And what happened when you were called?
So imagine my surprise, having resigned myself to not winning and totally relaxing into the evening of just having a nice dinner with our table, when they said, and the winner of Outstanding Collaboration is Q Branch. And nothing happened. And John, the guy sat next to me, who we had done the collaboration with, gave me a nudge and went, I think this is where you stand up, Matt, and go and get the award.
So I received a text message saying, we've fucking won. So then I couldn't sleep. I was full of adrenaline all night. But yeah, it was exciting. How did it feel experiencing all of that? Because I was miles away.
So I was before we'd won, I was sort of sad that you weren't with me, but I had sort of relatively low expectation of winning. So I was just trying to concentrate on looking after the people we were hosting the table for, because they've all contributed to our journey massively. I was sad that you and my dad weren't there, because you were supposed to be, but I was really concentrating on that. So then when we did win, basically all the feelings just massively intensified. So my excitement and adrenaline shot through the roof. I was so pleased that we'd been recognized. They said, as part of giving out the award, that the work we'd done with our chosen charity, Tough to Talk, which is who we won the award for collaborating with, stood out head and shoulders above all the other entries, which was just amazing and mind blowing to hear. And then there was the intense feeling of, now I really wish Jenny and my dad were here, because I really missed sharing that moment with both of them.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much the two most important people, apart
Yeah,
from your daughter,
yeah,
couldn't be there. And your dad supported you so much through your
through
life.
all sorts, yeah.
And then
And you know, the
I was
setup
there
of the
supporting
business.
him through his stuff. And yeah, it was really weird. It was weird for me.
Yeah, and it was equally as weird there. It felt a little bit, once we'd won, it sort of felt a little bit like an out of body experience. Actually,
Yeah.
the rest of the rest of the evening, um, because then there were photos and you know all the rest of it that goes on when you win an award. And I was there on my own, like, and anyone that knows us really well and has worked with us as a client or a supplier or whatever knows that basically we are a twosome, and I was having to be a onesome, and it felt odd. But
Yeah, I mean, you had lots of my parents were there. It was odd for them
oh
too.
yeah, I
You
mean
know,
yeah, I mean we had amazing some amazing support with us. The people who have really made a big difference to our journey in the last year and many years in some cases in the run up. But we did win.
we did. Yes, that was the highlight of the year.
What other highlights have you had?
Well, I think so. I've been waiting for 20 years to go back to Canada, and being able to take you and the girls was a highlight. There were challenges, there were definitely challenges, but I think we made the most of all the challenges as we always do. So I think my favorite days were swimming in Shoeswap Lake with my cousins and my cousins' children and my cousins' children's children. So it was a whole big family affair. And we went swimming in the lake. All the girls came too. That was an amazing day, wasn't it? I think that
Yeah.
was a real kind of pivotal day for you too.
Yeah, I think like for me, standout day of the year. Really, it was just yeah,
Perfect.
yeah, perfect. It's one of those perfect days. I loved driving the speedboat across the lake in Canada, and I loved diving off it into the water, and just yeah, so many wonderful things.
Yeah. Whale watching.
Whale
We were
watching
really
was
really
cool.
lucky because we got to see orcas and humpbacks, which is very unusual. So we had an amazing experience seeing my family, some of them whom I haven't seen for 20 years, and introducing Matt to them. So that was a real highlight. So we've had some good, really good times this year, along with all the kind of more difficult times. Um, Given that we've had to go through quite a lot of crisis this year, how what have you learned about how you manage crisis?
Um, well, I would say pretty simply to that I am able to flick very quickly into a different mode in those situations. I would say is the best way I can describe it. And I go into a real deep focus on strategy and solutions.
Yeah, you do. It's actually quite odd to watch because it's almost like there's a it's not a shutdown, but it's a hone in. So your energy just goes and so I'm not like that. So I think one of the things we work with our clients is how we deal with different people dealing with things in different ways. And I'm much more of a sort of person, and you're a sort of person.
Yeah, but I think it's very learned. I think it was absolutely essential of my work in very high pressured events and entertainment industry, where a deadline is a deadline. You know, you can be doing. I mean, I can think of like huge events that I've done with hundreds of thousands of people who are turning up at 7 p.m. regardless of whether you finished or not. regardless of whether the event is ready or not, regardless of whether EE are able to launch 5G right now or not. They're coming. So you better be ready. And nothing ever in any walk of life or business happens, as I say all the time, in a straight line. There are always challenges. There are always ups and downs, and there are always things that happen, always. And it's not about, for me, thinking that those things shouldn't happen. It's about dealing with them quickly and proactively when they do. And with 25 years of working in that environment has taught me how to deal with it very quickly. And that is, and for me, and everyone's different in how they need to work, but for me, that's to really focus in on what is my end goal, what is my strategy that's going to go there, and what is the next exact step that I need to take right now. And I just take it.
It's really brilliant to watch. Like, it is super fascinating to watch in a really positive way. And also, I think knowing our disc profiles, so we've been talking quite a lot in other arenas about disc profiling. I think knowing the disc profiles really helps as well with understanding what's happening in those situations. I know in a crisis, I go into hyper research mode.
Yeah.
So if I want to know all the details, I will be Googling like a crazy person, all the different options. So I will be Googling what flights we need to get, what are the options for flights, where we can go from. It was me that realized that your dad had sent us a video of the island that he was on in Greece 2 months previously. So I'm like scrolling through going, I think your dad sent us a video of an island in Greece. So that must be where he is. So I will go and scroll and we'll find that video. And something else will trigger and I'll go, oh, remember that conversation we had about that? I think so. I'm going to hyper research mode.
Yeah, which is a great partnership actually for me, because I always say, and we say with our clients all the time, the best strategies. So I'm in, what's my next step, and then what's the strategy, and then what's the end goal. But the best strategies need the best research. Otherwise, they're just guesses. It's guess to G's. There's a new word. I'm going to work on that one. But we'll...
yeah, so I think...
So it's actually a really great combo, because I can forget about that bit because I know Jenny's going...
yeah.
And then I go, okay, the next thing that I need to know is XXXX, and Jenny's already normally got the answer.
So even down when we were told it was going to be a brain hematoma, I'm like, what the hell is a brain hematoma? So I'm Googling what it is, bleed on the brain, what that means, these are the options. So we kind of knew what we may be facing at the other end, because that was the only information we had.
Yeah.
So we kind of then had more knowledge. So for me, it's all about the knowledge and what we can do. And for Matt, it's about what exactly can we do? What's the tactic? What's the strategy? How do we fix it?
Yeah. You're a master of opening up the story gaps today, Jenny. So just for you all who are going mad, Dad is home, he's well, and things are relatively back to normal. So
yeah, no, and we had a very good bonding time.
Absolutely.
I really enjoyed spending that time with your dad. So it was good.
Yeah, and I quite enjoyed the opportunity to go and eat amazing Greek food and swim in the sea when we weren't running around looking after people and sorting things out.
And the other thing about that whole situation was when we flew out to Greece, we were supposed to be flying out to Germany to do one of the courses that we'd invested in this year. So, it was thousands of pounds worth of course that we're then going, shit, we can't go on that. So we're going to have to reorganize all of those things as well. So there was a lot of balls that we were juggling.
Yeah.
So how it's something that I'm sure the listeners and viewers are going to be asking. How do we carry on with our business when all of that is kicking off?
Yeah, so it's an interesting one. And certainly when you're right in the thick of it, you do drop some balls. Like, it's inevitable because your focus is elsewhere. However, we didn't drop many balls. And for me, there's some real keys as to why. And that is our mission and purpose. Our mission and purpose is bigger than us, and it's bigger than what's going on in our lives, and it involves other people. And there's a real, like, psychologists talk about this all the time, there's a real big thing about you will normally do more for others than you will for yourself. And so our mission is really grounded in helping other people and helping the world. So our big premise is that we power up the missions for change makers that are changing the world for a better in some way. And there's a real ripple effect to that, which I do want to talk about later on. And that is that when we help our clients, they are massively helping other people. So actually, we're not just helping our clients. Our mission doesn't just help our direct clients. It helps thousands of people beyond that. And our work here on the podcast helps many, many, many people beyond our clients, give them tools, inspiration, and, as we say, a power up.
And the other thing that we've created within our business is the ability to actually pick it up anywhere. Yes. So the day after this all happened, we were sat in Greece. We went to get breakfast because we were in an apartment and things hadn't been organized yet. And one of our clients messaged us with a crisis that was going on for them in their business. And we were able to sit there and message and help them with the crisis that they were going through at home, because we can do that. So I think setting this time aside to sit for an hour in an apartment in Greece and do our LinkedIn posts, do our weekly letters, emails, and all of that kind of stuff, because they're things that are built into our day and we're being really consistent with them. It wasn't too difficult to carry that on. What did happen with Greece and with Canada as well in some ways is that it interrupted our flow with the podcast. Yes. So I think that's been the biggest challenge we've had this year, is keeping the podcast going
and consistently.
So we've had 12 episodes this year in 8 months. We had planned to have 2 a month, but of course that works out at just over 1 a month. But we've done 12 episodes given everything that's been kicking off. I think that's amazing. So sometimes it's not like, if you go back to our first video, you will hear us saying we're going to release a podcast every fortnight, this is going to happen. And actually it's not been possible because we've been taken out so often by things that have been a bit out of our control. But also then we've investigated how we can manage that better. So what was happening is Matt was doing a lot of the editing, and it's really time intensive. We talked to people about them doing the editing, but our budget is in different directions at the moment. So we had to sit down and go, right, what is in our business? What do we need? We had to really work it out in a very logical, structured way. And what I said was, do you know what? I quite like editing. I don't mind doing it. I believe I've got the time to do it. So I took that off Matt's plate. So it comes to me. And I work quite well under those pressures because I'm like, right, I know that it needs to be out on Wednesday, so I've got to do it. So that helped us make changes within the way we were working on the podcast, so that it has, since we've done that, it's been a bit more consistent.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about it. A lot of it comes back to what I was saying about the Tony Robbins thing of when it's a must, the next, rather than a should or a want, the next question isn't just a statement of, I haven't got time, I can't do this. It then becomes a question of, how do I do it? How do I find the time? How do we do this? Because it's a must. It's a decision that's a must. It's not it would be nice if. So when it is a must, there's then the question of, okay, it's a must. So now we have to work out the how.
And the first question about it was, is it a must?
Yeah.
So that was the very first question. We then had to sit down and go, is this a must for our strategy? And we decided it was. And because we decided it was, we then had to do the how.
Yeah.
And going forward, that will change again.
Yeah. And I think that is, and our strategy around the how will shift, as you say, as things change and evolve. Strategy is never something that's set in stone. It's something that has to evolve as you evolve because things change. When you're using Google Sat Nav to get from A to B, Google just doesn't give you the route to start with and then go, there you go, you're on your own. It's constantly looking at what's going on, with road conditions, with traffic, with accidents. And, it will often suggest other routes or better paths or reimagined timelines.
Yeah.
So
definitely reimagine timelines.
Absolutely.
What have you learned about working together and the way we work together in this
I think, well, for a start, it's no surprise to us that we work really well together. We actually started working together because I started to bring Jenny in to work with my clients. It was a real game changer in the results the clients got. Made things much nicer for me. And they started to say to us, why don't you guys do this all the time? It's amazing. And we got to a point where we were like, okay, I think the market's telling us something. Maybe we should listen. And they were right. It is great. But again, it hasn't been without challenges. There is some stuff we've had to learn about how to work with each other.
I'm not very consistent.
But it really comes down to a couple of things, really. Just being open and honest and talking about how we feel, for one thing, and giving each other the safety and the space to do that in a way where we're not just jumping down each other's throats. Rachel Davis, actually, and her husband made a really good point, that it's not about not having disagreements. It's about not having anger in disagreements. You can work through a disagreement quite logically if you just leave anger out of it.
And it's actually very rare for us to disagree.
Yeah.
It is quite rare. It does happen, but it is quite rare. One of the things I think I've learned is that we can do what we do together and separately too. So recently, Matt went on to a meeting with a client while I was with another client. And it was like, oh, we can do this. We can, like, Matt can see this client have this meeting and I can see that client and do that thing. And nothing was lost in that. It was,
yeah. And
it still worked really well.
And it's important in our business scaling and growth to be able to do that.
I've learned, I think, a lot more about my value to the business, because I think that's something I've struggled with quite a lot, where Matt, so Matt does quite a lot of the practical, physical, visible stuff. So it's like Matt does there's a thing, whereas mine is less of a thing. It's more of an experience.
Yeah.
So I had to really get to grips with how I quantify my value within the business versus how I quantify what Matt does. So I get very kind of, oh, Matt's so clever and he's so creative and he does all of this stuff. And I go, oh, what do I do? And I'm sure lots of people out there in partnerships might be thinking the same within their business. What do I bring?
Or thinking that of the other person. Like, I'm doing all this stuff. What are they bringing to the table?
Yeah, I think that happens a lot too. And so we've had a conversation about it. I actually talked to my therapist about it because it was something that was important to me to understand my value. One of my personal top driving values in the world is feeling valued. I only learned about this top value through working with my own coach. Now, knowing that is a top value of mine, if I'm not feeling valued, not by Matt, because that's not how it works, but by myself, I really have to get a grip of that. and work out how I can feel valued for myself so that I don't start sabotaging stuff. And I think that's a really important thing that I've learned this year, is how can I manage and work with my values to not sabotage things when it might not feel that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. And it is a good point. And I think useful for a lot of people, particularly in the smaller businesses growing, as a solopreneur or in a partnership, or with a small leadership team. I think there's a lot of mindset and things around that.
And another thing I think we've both learned, because I recently got an ADHD diagnosis, and we've known probably more than the last year that it's likely I have ADHD. So we both have to work together with how I manage that and how we manage each other's potential neurodivergent thinking. So that's something that we've worked on a lot over the last few years, isn't it? About how we manage and what strategies we need to keep ourselves on track.
Yeah. And I think, and this is something that Sam Schlimpert really shared with us in an earlier episode, which is well worth a dive into, as we said earlier. I think there's a real key thing that we have to remember is, what do you bring to the table that you are best at that no one can do? And what do you enjoy doing? And if you focus on that and allow and let the other people in the organization focus on that too, we get better results. We just do, because people are more engaged in what they're doing. They're more proactive about what they do. I think that's...
And actually, the result of that conversation with my therapist was an agreement that I was going to speak to you about editing the podcast.
Yeah.
So that you didn't feel that was on your plate as well.
Yeah.
So that was just a small change that helped me feel valued.
Yeah.
Because I was doing a practical thing rather than the service kind of driven things.
Yeah.
What has been your favorite client moment of the year?
Wowzers.
It's a big question.
So many.
Yeah, there have been.
There's been some real life-changing moments, really, for us and the clients we've been working with. I think I'm going to cheat.
I've got a list.
Yeah, I'm going to go with two things for me. When we're workshopping with a client and they have a real breakthrough that we've engineered, it's just magical.
So without naming any clients for confidentiality, is there any moments that stand out?
Yeah, so there's one, and it nearly always happens in our clarity workshop, which is the first workshop we always do with a new client, to help them particularly and us understand the why, the who, the what, and the how of the business. And always when we get to the who, there's a breakthrough moment, because it's something a lot of people struggle with. Who are they actually there to serve, and who do they want to serve actually, and who can they serve best, right? And it's something people get really tied up in doing, avatars and all the rest of it, without actually diving deep into it enough to uncover the truth of who they should and want to work with. And so one that stands out for me this year, and it happens with nearly every client in a slightly different way every time, but we'd spent probably half an hour writing on a big whiteboard all about their ideal client. We'd gone into the psychographics, the demographics, their pains, the fears, all the standard stuff, right, that you do when you're building a client avatar, and working out how to communicate with them. And I should rewind that the first thing we do in that workshop is we identify the goals. of the person and the business, or the leadership team and the business, so that we know what we do strategy wise, and for the rest of the workshop, it's going to actually lead to those things rather than away from it. And I stood back and I suddenly had a breakthrough moment where I looked at the whiteboard and I just went, none of this gets these people where they've said that they want us to take them. And I just slapped my hand on the board, rubbed it all out, and I said, this is absolute, excuse my French, but bollocks.
You didn't say that. You said, this is bullshit.
Oh, sorry, bullshit. This is not going to get you where you've said you want to be. So everything we've done for the last hour is absolute complete bullshit. And I never want you to talk about this person ever again. And then we spent a couple of hours rebuilding it, actually from the inside out. And it created a real mind-blowing change in their business, which has seen them absolutely skyrocket ever since. And a similar thing around the who happens with nearly every client, and it's really magical.
It's never who they think it is.
It's never
very rarely.
Very rarely. And
it's really interesting.
It is. I'm not entirely sure why that is. I just know.
Well, we do. It's because people come in with an industry and they follow the standard because they think that's what they should do.
Yes.
And it's not actually going to get them where they want to go, but it's familiar.
Yes.
So it is about familiarity.
Yes, that's true. That is very true.
That's what happens.
And following sort of quite basic practices that are out there, that actually, if you just sit and do those sort of, cheap worksheets and things that are available online yourself without any outside perspective or introflexion, or making sure that what you're doing actually leads to your goal, it's really just not, it's never going to produce the right answer.
So that was number one, I think.
Yeah. So number two, and again, it is a bit of a general thing, but we have a WhatsApp group for each client that we work with, and I just absolutely love the messages that they send when the work we've done together has led to something that just blows their mind or excites them beyond, or something that wasn't even available on the table, or something that they've dreamed of for years and they've never been able to get through. Happens like that, and they send a message, and it's just, I love that. Like, it's really cool, I cannot get enough of that. How about you?
So the WhatsApp thing is one of mine, actually. When we had a message from a client saying that somebody they really revere in their industry and respect had messaged them and said, did they want to share a hotel room with them on a workshop that they were doing together? And they were like, what? Like, how did that happen? And it's because they're showing up in the way that they need to show up in the world for their business and for the goals and for their life changes. And I said, well, you're going to be that mentor one day who is going to see something in someone else, and you're going to reach out to them. And so I loved that.
Yeah.
Also, something that was actually from a client who I worked with maybe 3 years ago now. And it was, I was scrolling through Matt's phone and I saw a photo. And in the photo was Matt in his old life, his old industry, and 3 other people. And I said, oh, that's such a cool photo, because, well, there were actually about 6 people in the photo, but 3 of those other people were clients of mine. And Matt had spoken to my first client, and I worked with them. And then they had spoken to the second client, and I worked with them. And then the second client spoke to the third client, and I worked with them. So in this one photo was Matt and these 3 clients of mine who I hadn't worked with for a couple of years. And I sent the photo to one of the clients, well, actually to 2 of the clients. And the first client said, oh, that was a really tough time. I've come a long way since then, but that was a really tough time. And the other client said, that was an amazing time. things were really bad, but there were 3 people in that photo waiting for you to change their lives. And that was pretty special.
And you did. And
That was pretty special. So I also, one of those clients also sent me a Christmas card. It's my favorite Christmas card. It's got a picture of her and her partner on the front of it. And they've been together, it must be coming up for 2 years now. And inside the card, they said, you insisted, well, they said, I insisted I didn't want to have a relationship while we were coaching. So when we were coaching, I love doing relationship coaching because it's really important for business, for all sorts of things. And they kept saying, I don't want a relationship. I don't want a relationship. And I'd say, okay, you don't want a relationship, but let's just do a bit of work on relationships because it'll help you with your colleagues. It'll help with your family. And you never know, one day you might get a relationship. So they sent this card and they said, I said I didn't want a relationship, and now I've sent you a disgusting card with me and my partner on the front of it. So I'm going to treasure that card forever. They've been together a while. They're having a great relationship. They always say it was because of me. They say it was because of me and the work we did together, but I know it's because they embraced the work they did together. There are people that we do the work and they're still not going to do the stuff. She wasn't even intending on using the stuff that I did, but she still used it. And I think that's brilliant.
Yeah.
And some of the workshop we did last week where I was nearly in tears. Like, I don't cry very much.
She doesn't.
I don't do the emotional stuff particularly, but the way the client explained why they wanted to increase their business and grow their business in the way they did was just so beautiful and heartwarming and genuine and real. And it nearly brought me to tears. And that same client, we kept saying they were a visionary, and they kept saying, I'm not a visionary. And I sent them an itemized list of what a visionary is. And they were like, holy moly, I'm a visionary. I never knew I was a visionary. I didn't know that about myself. And it really blew the water open for them. Those big changes, and the fact that we can be part of those big changes, which is our mission in life, let's face it. That is our mission, is to change people's lives and to create businesses that change people's lives, because that's what we love. And so seeing it and living it is pretty special.
Yeah, amazing. And just I'll go at that point just back to the ripple effect, because we all know when we throw a stone in the water, it's not just the plop of the stone that affects the water. There's a real ripple out from that. And that really happens when you focus your attention on what you can do for others. Because that client that you're just talking about's mission is going to impact other people, hundreds of other people, for the the benefit of them and the world around them, and in turn they will go on to help other people and help the world. And I think that ripple effect is really under talked about and is of massive value.
And it's not just about their business changing the world. They're going to change the world for their families by earning more money.
Yeah.
Heaven forbid. There's so much negativity about money and who earns what. But if you earn more money, and that then can be passed to kids, grandkids, people around you, charities, support charity. If you've got no money, you can't give it away to a charity.
Yeah.
If you've got no money, you can't support your kids in buying their first house or driving a car or getting help when they need it. So all of these things, money is a tool. That is what it is. It's a tool to help you and give you access to things. And the more these businesses grow, the more that the people owning the business can use that tool to help other people, whether it's directly through the business or whether it's through personal gain.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what would you say was a regret that you've had this year? Something you wish you'd done differently?
Um, I think I regret not taking on the podcast a bit earlier because I think that that would have taken a lot of pressure off you a bit sooner. But I think, my favorite phrase is there's no failure, only feedback.
Yeah.
And so quite a lot of regrets, I think, often come from feelings of failure or that you've done something or shame or whatever. I regret not getting my book finished earlier. So I really regret that I procrastinated on some of that. But actually, it's all been a process and we have to embrace that process sometimes, and we have to acknowledge those processes. Do you have any regrets?
Well, as you said, not regrets as such, because I do think that we're just on a journey, and we've had the journey we've had, and the journey we've had has led us here. So I can't regret anything about that. But if the question is actually what would I do differently now going forward, I've seen firsthand, both in our business and in some businesses that we've consulted with or talked to, that whenever you stray from the strategy or you don't fully follow through with something, or you try and take a shortcut, stuff either doesn't happen or things go awry. Things slow down, things go awry. I'll give an example that's happened for us this year. So in our own brand strategy, we brought in an outside consultant, Matt Davis, to help us work through some of our positioning.
Which we were doing exactly this time last year.
Which was an amazing process. And, all businesses need to bring outside people in to help with, because as we did, because let's face it, this is what we do every day, and we still needed outside help because you just get in your own way. And the outshot of that work was that we had a load of work that we then had to do ourselves. And because we're in this field, partly I thought, I don't really need to bother doing that next bit because we just know it. And actually, we're doing it now.
Yeah, we needed to create the roadmap that you would create for our clients, for ourselves, and we didn't do that.
And we didn't
put it in paper.
We didn't.
Sort of just kept it in our mind, and we didn't really keep it in our mind. So I think what's changed for us over the last year is quite a lot. Like, our mission has changed a bit.
It shifted slightly.
Our messaging has changed.
Our message has changed
quite a lot,
massively, and
who we serve has changed quite.
Yeah.
No, it's not changed. It's been honed.
It's been focused.
We've worked with clients, and then we've seen a pattern, and we've gone, oh yeah. So one of the things that we do quite differently to a lot of brand strategy people, I think, is that we don't really focus on an industry. And in fact, we've decided that we only focus on one person in an industry, one industry at a time. So we wouldn't work with two people who want to sell coffee, for example.
Yeah.
At once, and we would probably leave quite a big gap before.
Yeah.
We may never work with another person who wants to sell coffee, and that's something that I think we have learned is really important to us.
And I think it allows us to do much better work for our clients too.
Yeah, I do.
Because we are not bound or influenced by the narratives of the industry, which is one of the ways that people get stuck.
Yeah. So I think that, yes, I agree with your kind of
absolutely
regret in...
just following through with the strategy and putting it in, getting it down, actually, stop having it in your head, get it down, put in frameworks, put in practices, and base everything on it, and don't just stop with the shortcuts. Like,
Yeah. So one of the other things I think I've learned in the last year is like who's important to bring in, who's important to keep out,
yeah,
because that's just as important to know. I think work for us working with a PR company has been really interesting.
yeah,
The process of it, like they've done some really good stuff for us in the local area. And what's happened is that we'll go into places and people will recognize us because of the PR work. So they'll say, "Oh, hi, Jenny. Hi, Matt." And we go, "We've never met you before."
yeah,
Because we've been a lot more visible. So we've been learning about visibility. I think I've learned again about what we've learned about each other. You've really become a lot bolder as well in the last year. You know, when I said to you about after one of our workshops, did you think that you would ever be hosting a workshop like this? And you were like, it wasn't even on thing.
no, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's been a massive learning that if we want to make change, we have to increase our influence. And that means increasing our visibility, because without visibility, you have no influence. And without influence, you can't make any change to anything,
Yeah.
even within your own life.
And there was a stage in your previous working life where you wouldn't get on the stage. Literally
No,
wouldn't.
I strategically hid in the shadows. But but in that circumstance, I still built influence
Yeah, you did.
within that industry. It was just in a different way.
Oh, it was wonderful and annoying at the same time because I would go and see Matt's work and I would be in his workspace quite a lot. And there wasn't a workspace that I wouldn't turn up at that they'd go, "Oh, Matt's so wonderful. Oh, I love working with Matt. Matt's my favorite person to work with. Oh, Matt's so great." Which was really lovely. Actually, as a new girlfriend, to have all these people so eager, like they weren't just casually, they were eagerly coming up to me and going, "Oh, we're so glad that Matt's found somebody who's so happy and he's so wonderful." And so that gave me real confidence in the early days that I'd made a good choice.
Yeah. And well, that nicely brings me on to my favorite. Normally, my favorite part of the podcast, where I get to do my Desert Island Discs bit. But
Having the tables turned.
I'm having the tables turned on me today, and I'm going to have to answer these too. So it's taken the edge off it. I won't lie, because I've realised how difficult these questions are.
When I said to Matt, "You do realise we're going to have to do a book, a music, and a tool," he went, "What?" And I said, "No, we do it with our guests. We have to do it." And he was like, "Oh my god!" So here we go. Desert Island this time. Who's going first?
So, well,
are we doing a book each and then moving on? Or are we doing?
Yeah, no, I think we'll do it as we normally do it. So, listeners and watchers to our podcast regularly will know that at the end of every podcast, I do my Desert Island Discs bit, and I ask our guest for a book, a piece of music, and a tool or framework that has massively influenced and changed their journey, either in the short term or throughout their lives, that they want to share to help other people. So, Jenny, please give me a book, a piece of music, and a tool or framework that has really inspired and influenced you.
Okay. So the book, I've got 3. So the
cheating as ever.
Cheating as ever. Yeah, but with the little caveat. So I'm going to say my own book. It's not even out yet. Writing that process of writing it and learning all the tools that I've learned. So again, having to dig deep and go, what have I learned about myself? What tools have I had? And putting them into a book was a real kind of challenge and a real insight into how far I've come in life. And it was quite therapeutic. So I don't want to just leave it with my own book.
Well, hold on, because if you're going to shamelessly self-promote your own book, you better tell people what it's called.
It's called Life's Just One Big Drama. because it is. It was something my auntie said to me after a chat one day. I was filling her in on my life, and she went, "Oh, Jenny, your life's just one big drama." And that led to my Drama Dialogues podcast and my book. So thanks, Auntie Linda.
And there's a link in the comments if you want to get your copy.
Yeah, we're hoping it's out soon. So at the moment, it's pre-orders, isn't it? So the second book, again, the reason I'm allowing myself 3 is because the second book was the one that Neil Smith from Metal gave us. And he said, you have to listen to Matthew McConaughey's Green Lights. And we really loved it. So we can underline his recommendation that you listen to it on audiobook. It was brilliant. I loved the concept of where all the way through the book he goes, green light, because something happens that gives him the green light to move forward. So I really liked that concept of knowing where the green lights are, paying attention to them, and taking those opportunities when you've got them.
And do definitely don't read it. Get it on Audible, because he reads it himself, and he just brings something to it that you would never get by reading it.
So cool. So thanks, Neil, for that. And my final one is Harry Potter, again on Audible. So I'm a real Audible fan, but Stephen Fry reading Harry Potter is just an absolute masterclass in how to read an amazing book. And we listened to all of them, didn't we? So yeah. Harry Potter was our nighttime listening for months and months and months. And one of the things that we learned most from doing that was, because I never read the books, was how different the films are, what people cut out, what the highlights are, who, like we said, who made the decision to cut those particular bits out? Like, why did they make those decisions? And I think that's a really good thing for life, is to not, I heard so many people go, oh, well, the movies don't have all these things in, the books have all these things in, the books are amazing because they have all these things in. But instead of that, go, because my daughter said to me the other day, she said, gosh, this is turning into a long monologue. My daughter said to me, but why isn't the whole book in? Why have they cut all these bits out? And I said, well, because the book for Stephen Fry to read was 27 hours long. You can't have a film that's 27 hours long. So you have to choose the highlights. And I think looking at why they strategically chose those highlights to put in the film and missed out other things, for us was a great thought process. It really got our brains working. And I always like to know why things happen. So I'll never know why they made those decisions, but I can sit there and definitely look at it and go, wow, that book was 27 hours long. And it was actually a 2.5 to 3 hour film, however long the film was. What was it about those characters? What was it that was missing from those characters? And we loved the book, didn't we? It answered so many questions for us that maybe came out of the film. And we go, oh, my daughter's just done the same with Hunger Games. I won't watch the Hunger Games, not my thing. But she's just read them all after watching the films. It's her favorite film. And she's gone, oh, mum, but this and this and this and this. So I really loved that. That was a very long book answer. I hope my music answer will be shorter. So music is Move It, Move It. You've got to move it, move it. So what happens when we put that on, Matt?
We move it.
We move it. So in the morning when we don't want to go to the gym, I'll sneakily put that on our phone and we both go, oh, we've got to move it now. Or if our energy is getting low.
Particularly in the afternoon. We quite often will stick this on in the office in the afternoon, because just to re-energize ourselves, and we have a bit of a stretch and move around, because
we dance around like lunatics.
Yeah.
So we put Move It, Move It on, which was in Robert Riopal's Millionaire Mind Intensive. They put it on every time they wanted us to re-energize and move. Yeah. So that's anchored to that time that we had with Robert, in that sort of 12-hour days, 3 long days of 12 hours, sat in a room, and they'd put this music on and we'd all get up and move our bodies. And we still use that as a tool, Robert, regularly. Most days, don't we?
Yeah.
So Move It, or anything from the musicals. I love a musical. So for me, it's all about the musicals. And I really loved Wicked. We just went and saw it. I've never seen it on stage. I love the film. So there's a film to add to the music. And my favorite tool is constellation therapy. Now, I put constellation therapy and NLP. I love NLP. It changed my life. It's a favorite tool of mine. But I know what it can do, and I'm very secure in what NLP can do.
And it does it again and again and again consistently.
And I've seen it so often. But what happens with constellation work is that I'm constantly surprised at the impact it has. We use it in our workshops. We use it with our clients. I use it with myself. We use it for money. We use it for business. So it's called family constellation therapy, actually. And I usually whack the family off at the front because it's not often not about the family. And having Rafe Nowen as my mentor on that, and he is, I would say he is one of the world leader in constellation therapy and how to use it. And he's a brilliant trainer. He's a brilliant mentor. And I'm very privileged that he lets me do work with him. So if he needs some constellation work, he contacts me and I do it with him. So sitting in our workshops and seeing the impact of what constellation work can do blows my mind every time. So that's why it's my favorite tool.
Yeah, amazing. Great.
It's my turn. I never get to do this bit. No. It's never my turn. So now it's my turn.
Okay, Judith. Desert Island Disc me.
Okay. So, Matt, I'm looking for your favorite book, music, and tool or framework that has impacted your life in some way.
Okay. So, I'm really going to focus on this year because this is our special year. This is a special all about our year, even. Wow, book. Like, this is hard because I've read some amazing books this year, and I will just list a few off because they are amazing. Cheating. This is Marketing, Seth Godin, amazing. Real insights in there. How to Build a Story Brand is great. Alex Hormozi has done some brilliant work that I've read this year. $1 Million Consulting and $1 Million Proposals by Alan Weiss, game changing. And I'll also say, it's not an afterthought, Storyology by Matt Davies, definitely worth a read. But one stands head and shoulders above the rest for me this year. For its impact it's not only had on me, but I use the teachings of this book over and over and over again with our clients, and it just works, and it works every time. And I was actually fortunate enough that the author sent me this book for free, and it is Key Person of Influence by Daniel Priestley.
Yeah, I love that book too.
Get it, read it again, then read it one more time, and then put it into practice. It just works. I've been putting it into practice all year, and my influence is growing exponentially because of it, because I've put it into practice. So yeah. And I've seen it work with our clients too. It just works, guys. Music. So we did another training earlier this year where in Amsterdam called Guerrilla Business Intensive, and with an amazing trainer, Mac Attram, and it was great, and it was life-changing in business training, and it had a theme tune, and its theme tune was Pump It by the Black Eyed Peas. And this tune started and finished every session. And again, it's one that we've brought back with us. And we play it in the morning to energize us. We play it in the office. Anytime I need a little boost of Matt power, Pump It's on, and we're getting ready to pump it for ourselves and our clients. So I just love it as a power up.
What happens when you think about it and the time that we spent at GBI? in Amsterdam?
I just get re-energized. I get more confident. My state changes to one of more positivity, more creativity, more just it changes to a state of more actually.
When I hear it, I get a visual of Matt coming up on stage doing his little dance because he's got his dance thing and spreading the money around and like the whole room just kind of really powering up.
Yeah. Yeah. And as we're all about powering up missions, let's pump it.
Yep.
And tool or framework. This one is it's about goal setting in a different way. It's called the fruits and the roots, and we use it with all of our clients. It was taught to me by our good friend Robert Riopal, who we've talked about a lot today. And it really is a bit of a game changer. So the fruits are the results we get in our life and our business. And what most people do, and the mistake most people make, is they go, oh, my tree's just giving me all these apples. I hate apples. I don't want apples. I wanted oranges. So they tear all the apples off and they go, next year, we're growing oranges, guys. Let's go. And the next year, all these bloody apples appear. And they go, I didn't want apples. Blah, 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 blah. Tear them all off. Maybe we duct tape some orange branches onto our apple tree because that's definitely going to get us oranges next year, guys. And we do a bit of pruning and we reshape the tree into the shape of an orange. Still, its harvest is apples and apples and apples. Because it's the roots that create the fruits. So if we don't want apples, we want oranges, we need to plant the seeds and cultivate the roots that lead to an actual orange tree.
I think I'm going to have to stop you there. Right. So Matt could talk about this for the next 3 weeks and it'd be a very, very long podcast. It's already quite long. So I'm going to stop you because we will be doing workshops on this in the future. Yeah, we've got one coming up on Saturday talking about exactly this. So the viewers and listeners can actually sign up to our workshops when we've got some dates together for next year. Probably do one early January, I think, because it's a brilliant way to start the year. But as we were talking earlier, the goals setting is never ending. You don't just set all your goals at the beginning of the year and never readdress them again until December. Yeah. Disney strategy doesn't allow for that. We don't allow for that. So I'm going to stop Matt because he is very passionate about roots and fruits. I'm more passionate about seeds, but the only thing that rhymes with seeds is weeds and it doesn't really work. So I've just had to live with roots and fruits, haven't I, for quite a while now.
Yeah, because, well, basically, roots rhymes with fruits, Jenny. You can't mess with the rhyme.
Can't mess with the rhyme.
Yeah.
But again, massive thanks to Robert for bringing Halves training. Like, it's all based on Half Tieka's concepts, but Robert brought it to life and gave it so much fun and energy that it energized us and it changed the way that we work with all sorts of things in our life. So
and we've passed this tool on to our clients. You will notice throughout this podcast that I've talked about the things that I have learned and that we have learned that we now use with our clients, and it has an impact on their life. It's back to the ripple.
So we're at the end of the podcast, but I just want to thank all of our guests who have been on this year because they have been outstanding,
generous, massive value givers to our community. So there's the next thank you.
Yeah, so thanks for listening and tuning in. Please pass it on to other people that you think might be interested. I want to thank our charity Tough to Talk, because although we do the work we do for them because we want to give back to the community, they give back to us in so many ways. His partner Bex, the whole team at Tough to Talk, they give back to Q Branch in ways that they don't even know they're giving back. So we do it because we're passionate about the charity. But, it's been a big year for the charity. It's been a big year for us. Penguin PR, our PR company. They've done some really great work for us. We didn't know anything about PR, how PR worked, and they've kind of held our hand through the process. And we're still learning. We're still learning how PR can work for us and what we can do for it. But having their support has been brilliant too. And this, just this whole year, we've learned so many things. We've had, Rafe helps us, David Hurren, who comments on our LinkedIn posts, and all the people we've had at networking. We've had some, we've created an amazing tribe.
We've created an amazing tribe
and our clients,
community, and
our clients for trusting us. This feels like the award speech that we couldn't give on the on the night. So sorry about that. But all these people, business isn't about being single. Business is about who is in your circle, who can you create in your circle, who can you bring in your circle. We've got out, oh gosh, this leads to another shameless plug. So, and this wasn't intended, guys, but we have HQ coming up in January, which is our community. So we'll put the link in the show notes. But if you want to join a community of amazing businesses to help and support each other through, we're starting that in January. So we're very excited about that.
It's been a year in the making, and it's all part of getting deeper into our tribe and community so that we can all support each other.
Lift each other up.
Yeah.
So remember to be bold. We've been bold this year.
I think
we're going to be a bit bolder next year.
Mega bold year coming up. And we want to help you have a mega bold year. So keep listening to the podcast, support us. If you don't already, please like and subscribe.
Helps massively.
It helps massively and allows us to go out and get bigger guests and better stories for you.
Now I've got a big, long podcast to edit.
There's a bold challenge for you, Jenny.
Yeah. Have a good Christmas, everybody.
Have a great Christmas, and we will see you next year. Quick one before you go. If you want to grab a free PDF download copy of my new book, Being Bold, How to Use Brand and Human Transformation to Skyrocket Your Growth, just drop into the show notes where I'll put a link to your free copy.